Well, for being here. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Aaron Moore. I hope I got that right.
No.
All right, good. Aaron is currently serving as STEM lead for the Mississippi Bend AEA and the founder of a nonprofit called 212 STEAM Labs Incorporated. Prior to this, he served as an instructional coach for Bettendorf Middle School. He has been in education for over a decade, teaching 6th grade social studies, literature, computer, as well as spending many years teaching gifted education in grades 4 through 8 before taking on his role of instructional coach. A former First LEGO League coach for 8 years, Aaron is also a member of the LEGO Education Advisory Panel, PBS Digital Innovator, PITSCO TAG Committee, Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert, Skype Master Teacher, Minecraft Global Mentor, Makey Ambassador, and was the finalist for the Iowa Teacher of the Year in 2014. Woo! My God. He is an avid fan of STEAM, makerspaces, project-based learning. In his free time, he loves to spend time with his kids, Aiden, Addison, and Ava, their new bulldog, Frankie May, and acting like the 4th child to his wife, Amanda. I wouldn't know what that's like at all. Last, he is an avid coffee consumer, frequently spotted wearing bow ties, searching for that perfect cup of joe. This morning, Aaron advises us all to be ready. Together, we will explore the elements that make makerspaces successful and inspiring for students. How to take the culture of the makerspace into all classrooms, hallways, and the school as a whole. Please join me in welcoming Aaron.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for this long-winded paragraph. It just says, I'm a nerd. Welcome. I'm from Bettendorf, Iowa. Really excited to be here this morning. And so, as we go through, it's going to be a great day. The reason it's a great day is because we woke up breathing, right? Not everybody can say that, unfortunately. So we're here. And this is, I know it's a keynote, but this is not a show up and throw a presentation. So I hope you're ready to do some stuff. I just don't want to talk for 15 minutes because that gets really old. So hopefully you have a Lego kit. If not, you're going to need one. We're going to do some stuff with that. But before we do, let's jump into a couple of these things. And the first thing is that I think I always like to start this all off that we express who we are through what we make. And I think it's a no-brainer. It's not an insult to your intelligence, but I think that's really important. And as we've been decluttering our house, because I'm a bit of like a pack rat, I think I got that from my parents who keep everything, I came across this beautiful picture of me in middle school here. I think here a little bit. But what I started to realize was I was in education, or as a student, from kindergarten through 12th grade. And I was going through all my stuff. I came across a problem. And the problem was that I only had 3 artifacts from all my years in school. I have this beautiful doily clay ashtray thing from kindergarten. That's terrible. And I still actually have it from the years when my mother used it as an ashtray. So I think I used it for like a candle holder. It's been busted, and I still have it. For some reason, there's a sentimental meaning in there. When I was 11, I wrote this book, because clearly at age 11 you have a lot of relationship issues, and I wrote this book about the fox that had a problem with girls, and I still have it. And I ended up writing like a whole series on it because of my teacher who put a little note in there and said, keep on writing. And I got this piece from high school in a ceramics class where I made a ceramic piece of the gap between my teeth. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, Jesus, look at it. I mean, you can get a whole hell of a lot better from kindergarten to high school. And I didn't. But this is all I have. This is it. This is all that I have to show for all my years of schooling. And so I like to think of, like, are we creating learning artifacts that parents would be ashamed of throwing away if they were caught? And what I mean by that doesn't mean that we have to be hands-on making every single moment of every single class during the school day, because that would get old very fast as well. But are we creating these things that kids would be proud of? Like when my kids come home from school, my 6-year-old, she empties her backpack, and we go through the papers, but then 5 minutes later I can throw them away in front of her, and she doesn't care. Like, that's a problem. Like, where's the ownership in that? And so I want to stress, and I know you've been stressed about this a lot in terms of like makerspace, and I like to expand that makerspace, even if you're a classroom teacher, I mean you. So I'm not just talking to the people that actually have a true makerspace. I'm looking at the culture of it as itself in terms of the learning, but it's not about the tools. And so many times we focus on it, we buy this stuff, and then we have to figure out, well, how in the world am I going to use it? And that's a problem, because the technology is always going to be there. Like this was a kick-ass technology not too long ago. Like, how awesome was it? You remember to put a quarter in there, and you could call anyone in that human brain called a Rolodex, and you had to remember phone numbers? Like, this was amazing. And then the original iPod was just as good. Like, I have a killer playlist on it that still rocks it hard, you know. And this was amazing too. Where you waited for the beep, and you got a new slide, like how excited you're going to be for education. And I was one of the guppies and the people that jumped on board for the Google Glass, which that turned into like the biggest, creepiest device ever. Like, oh my God, people can walk around and record us. We don't know, but now it's coming back. And it doesn't matter, like, the technology progresses, and now we're messing, like, coding with HoloLens with middle school students. Like, it's not about the technology. Like, this is going to be, in 5 more years, this is going to be considered old school. This will be augmented reality in contact lenses. And so I wanted to think about around Mitch Resnick from MIT, the guy who helped create Scratch, is the 4 Ps. Because this is what I think is important when we're talking about learning, is the projects, the peers, the passion, and the play. And so the 6 key questions that I want to start with to give you some food for thought is you're looking at your classroom, you're thinking about your approach, you're thinking about how to make this stuff actually happen with the work that you're doing, is this. And so we want to start with what is a makerspace. And I don't really want to give a definition to it, because every space is different, every classroom is different. But the things that we've got to have in there is, do we have a place, a culture, that allows us, not just students, but the educators as well, to create, invent, and learn? Have we built that into the space that we're operating, when we're working with kids all day long? And as you start to go through, you have to make it. This is that when I worked at my middle school, this was the Coffee Truck Cafe. This was where we did our work with projects and maker and everything else. And it looks like a hot mess, because it is. Because the kids created it. They put it wherever they wanted to put things. And so part of that is, I didn't know where anything was, but 2, the things actually got used. It's interesting. I have a job now where I get to work with 21 school districts, and I walk in, the first thing they always want to show me is their 3D printer. But there's never kids on it. I'm like, well, who's using it? Well, we don't let the kids touch it. Well, then why'd you spend $3,000 on it? You know what, $3,000 can do a whole hell of a lot more for kids if you're not going to actually let the kids on the 3D printer. And so this is where the nonprofit space looks at now, where we're doing some work to test out some other ideas. Like, you can make it look however you want to make it. And so it's not about the tools, it's about the enabling the operation of making and building connections and helping them get engaged in the process. And so the other thing is this, like, who is a maker? And oftentimes we think of this guy. But what we have to do is reframe our brain. Because I know there's a lot of you in here probably thinking right now, like, I'm not a maker. I can't do these things. But we're all makers. So I know every speaker has to have their family photos. So there it is. I said it there early on. But we're all makers. So like my wife, I tell her all the time, like, like our house is a makerspace. Because you make like this stuff. Like, we go, we drive, and people are like throwing away fences, and we like pick up a fence, next thing you know I'm sanding it, reworking it into picture frames, and like, she's doing this work, like we all are making. And so we have to get away from this mentality that we can't do this work because we can. And so where do you put it? You put it wherever you have room. You turn it into the classroom. You store stuff in the ceiling. I work with the school now, we actually have it literally in a closet. And the goal this year is to prove to the community that the closet is too small to do the work we need to do. So we have to get away from the excuses to figure out how do we do this, because it's not about the physical space, it's about the culture that you're developing and creating. And I know you've been told this stuff time and time again, but it's so important. Because we spend so much time and energy and effort on things that we can like put into a spreadsheet and these data points. And this is not what it's about. It's about something much bigger. And when do we do it? We do it right now. Like, you should be going back into your classes after this day of learning and figuring out, how am I going to make these changes? What's all this learning that I've done today, and what am I going to do about it? Or is it just going to sit in my notepad or in my OneNote and just look there and convince myself that I actually learned something? And so how do we do that? You just get started. This is simple stuff. I know you're like, wow, this guy is not really empowering me with mind-blowing concepts. Because it doesn't need to be mind-blowing. Like, you have it. We have to get back to empowering ourselves as educators. We have to get back to believing. And the reason we got into this job to teach is because we had a calling. It's not just like, man, I think I'm just going to be a teacher because I just love dealing with kids all day. It's like, no. Like, so you have to get into there. And why do we do it? And I love this tweet here that I saw about a year ago. That if education were a business, would it suffer the same fate as Blockbuster, Sears, Kodak, and Borders? What are we doing? We're adapting already in our lives. And we're already making these shifts. And that's what we have to do is like, what are we doing in our personal lives? And how do we convert that into our class and our schools? And so some of these elements is we have to build persistence. We have to model persistence. We have to give kids the time and the space to actually be able to persevere. We have so much stuff that we think we've got to get through that we actually don't even give them time to grapple with struggle. And then we go and we complain that kids can't work through anything. So we have to build this time in. Like this girl here was in one of my classes, and she could not solder for the life of her. She could not do it. And she continued to work at it. All she was trying to do was get a ladybug's eyes away. Like the simplest soldering project ever. Finally, it worked. And I don't know if you've ever had that moment in your classroom where like a kid, like it happens, like that moment, I don't even know what the word is, and there's like this aura, like it's not, I can't even describe it in words, like that's what it was. And she was so proud of this ugly little soldered ladybug that looked terrible because she had burnt it more times than I care to admit. But that's what it's about. Or my wife was an 8th grade algebra teacher, and how in the world do you make anything in algebra outside of numbers? And so we keep finding ways, and now we're making vinyl art and decals using math equations with the Decimals app. And so we talk a lot about the F word, and my second, favorite F word, I think is free, but my third one is this acronym of the first attempt at learning, which we've heard time and time again. And the only reason I put this up here is I just wanted to share this story that I was trying to string Christmas lights with my drone. I bought a new one. And in the mail, I said, let's put 2 strands of lights on it and see what happens. Why not just start with 1? Needless to say, this thing, the wind got it. There was weight on the ground. It acted like an anchor. It smashed into my house, and there went $1,000. So, as we continue to work, and so we go from fail, you probably have heard of fail to second attempt at learning, which I don't really like that either. I like what my good friend Todd Beard said, this is successful attempt at learning. It might be the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. I don't know how many times it's going to take. So like we go back here, we were building a quadcopter from scratch. We 3D printed the body. We built all this, and this was going to be to help farmers in Nepal keep the birds from eating all their seeds, so they would actually not starve to death. And so as we move through here, we've heard about this in the tech startup world, the fail often, fail fast. And I like to look at this learn often, the learn fast. The caveat is at your own rate. Like, we got to move at our own place. So like my 6-year-old, she's not the best in school. Clearly her mother talks really bad. Not me. And, we got off a little bit. I mean, it's the same, right? But we have to give them that room to grow and develop. All right, as we go through here. And we have to give them the time to explore and discover and actually build that into the day. And give yourself permission to give kids permission to do that work. And start to move away from the burden where you think you have to get 9 million things in 1 year. I know that there are realities to the job. I'm not saying that those don't exist. But I think sometimes we can budget that time a little bit. There's this, we try to figure out, we work with kids, we got a laser cutter in the middle school where I work. Like, what if we laser cut a pumpkin? And so we tried it. And it smelled terrible. You kept laser cutter, never laser cut a pumpkin. It smelled, the only thing that smelled worse when we laser cut a belt. That smelled like death. So, and we just got to give them room to experiment and try things and see what works. And then these are some projects we'll come back to later. And it leads into ideas like this, where we're carving pumpkins now using our Arduino, the code, open and close. We're just teaching basic circuitry. What is a circuit? What is electricity? And we easily created these little pumpkins. But then here's what's cool when you allow it to happen. This student here took it a step further and added an ultrasonic sensor. So when people walked up to it on trick-or-treating, then it would open up. And then we had another one so now the Arduino's in this pumpkin, because he wanted to hide the pumpkin. This was the ultrasonic, and now it does the same thing. Without the mouse lights up, and it still triggers the other pumpkin. And so by giving them this freedom, things became so much more advanced. And it wasn't like step-by-step instructions. I didn't teach them how to code that. I gave them the baseline, I gave them the platform, and I let them run with it. And so how do we build this inquiry? So like in language arts and reading and writing, we designed drought gardens for 7th grade language arts. As opposed to just reading about droughts and getting our nonfiction standards in because we have to cover it, how do we get it more engaged? We're working with High Tech High and trying to help them with some ideas. Or the compost bins in science. How do we compost our fruit in our cafeteria, but then do it in a way that the kids could actually roll the barrels because they're not strong enough for the traditional ones. And so they're trying to figure out how to make that stuff happen. And the problem solving, working with people who are the experts. These guys here are working with the CEO of a startup robot company, trying to learn through this programming that they were trying to work through that I wasn't smart enough to do. And giving people the opportunity to solve their problems. So like these two young people here, 7th graders, had never used a hammer in their life. And they were trying to make a whiskey barrel for a National History Day project. Now, I could have stepped in, and I could have ended up doing what happens a lot of times in education, and did about 60% of the work to make sure it looked nice so they felt good. But they don't get any value out of that. So instead, they made it. That's a whiskey barrel. Kind of, sort of. But these kids were beaming with pride at how proud they were at that. Because they were the ones in charge. Like, here's a hammer. Well, how do I do it? I don't know. Hit the nail. See what happens. Like, go and try. And the communication then, so it's working, because it's coming back to empowering ourselves as educators, giving ourselves permission to do this work. You have abilities, you are amazing, and we browbeat ourselves. We start to think that we can't do this powerful work. We kind of get the edges of us grinded off over time. And so we were at the Deeper Learning Conference, and we were trying to make bottle openers, and I struggled. Like, I could not get mine going. Had it not been for my colleagues, I probably would have quit right at lunch, and they had to help me work through that. And then working together through collaborations. Here's another algebra project. We built an 18-hole miniature golf course using all the different geometry and algebra standards. And giving kids imagination, giving them time to flourish. So every time I left my room, the kids would do something in the space. And so my teacher desk was removed and left with that. So, you know, sometimes you gotta deal with that. And then we can talk about creation and community, bringing people in, starting to do this kind of work. But most importantly, is building this self-worth. When we start to make, even if it's crappy looking, we feel pretty darn good. We feel good about ourselves. And so how do we bring that in? Because the minute you start to feel good about yourself, like the sky is the limit in terms of what you're willing to go and try and do that. And that's what we're after. And so we make with our mind, we form the ideas with our hands. And so I told you I was going to do less talk, and so now we're going to dive into this a little bit. And these ideas are designed, a couple things that I want you to do is to think about some of these simple methods we're about to do, how you can scale it and adapt it to what you do in the classroom. Because learning is about stuff that sticks. The drill and kill doesn't work, and the reason that it doesn't work is because we're not giving them any sort of emotional connection or experience. So I always compare it to like we pull these kids in for summer school and we want to drill and kill them and they've already had 180 days of misery because school's already hard and sucks for them. And we're going to make them come to school in the summer to do more sucky work. And the same teachers that didn't connect with them in the first time, because they're the only teachers that are willing to come in because they need money for whatever it is they need. Like, how do we change that? And so it's like, give them to me and we'll go do a community project and I bet the learning will improve. And they're not even going to know that they're going to learn. And we don't need for that stuff to happen. So, go ahead and open your Lego bag. And if you need one, let me know. I can get your bag. If anybody needs, got a couple up here. All right. Okay, so as you're getting your pieces here, we're going to keep going. I want to make sure I stick to time here. Go ahead and organize. I know you don't have a base plate. There's only 6 pieces, so it shouldn't be too hard to organize. What's interesting, when you keep doing an activity like this, whether you're using Lego or any kind of materials, it's really fascinating to do an activity like this at the beginning of the school year. Have the kids, just tell them to organize. And it's amazing what you can learn from kids right away. Like if we were actually like in a place with tables, and I would give you like a different Lego kit with more pieces, like I would know which people are kind of like the OCD people where everything is meticulously sorted. And there's people like me that just don't care, just kind of have like a hot mess of a pile. Like you can learn so much about people very quickly. And so our hands know a lot more than what we think they know. And this is what I want to get to, is that making, it's an energy. It's an energy of combining parts to make a new whole. Like that's what we're after here. Making, learning, whatever word you want to put in there. So this activity is called What the Duck. Alright? So here's what we're going to do with What the Duck. First, a couple of rules, so there's no ducking around here while we're together. Number one, there's multiple answers. Number two, everybody needs to build. Okay, number three, the meeting's in the model. Alright? And the builder is the one that owns that meeting. Number four, the questions are about the model, not the person. So they do some things, you don't know what it is, we're not judging that person. We're going to support, we're a supportive nature here. And if you're not sure what to do, just start smashing pieces together. It's 6 pieces. These things are not that hard. So, you've got 1 minute, and you are going to build a duck. And if you happen to be on Twitter, I would, at least if nothing else, share with Lego Education, because they mailed these here for free, which is pretty awesome. And so I'm going to give you 1 minute, and we're going to build a duck. Go. You're already on the clock. Wait, you want to do it one? Doesn't work? No. Down to 40 seconds, no pressure. We're down to 20 seconds here. 10 seconds. We're going to the duck curve. Just put pieces together and play some ducks. Alright, so real quick before we go on to the next slide, don't destroy your duck yet. I always like to take a picture of the room full of ducks. If everybody could just raise their ducks up real quick. I always try to get a nice big group photo of the ducks here. Awesome. Okay, so very simple idea. That's just to get you warmed up to think about the powers of imagination. So think what just happened here in 1 minute with 6 simple Lego pieces. 6 Lego bricks. There was 24 skills used in some shape or form in here. And I'm not going to go through all of these now. But all these things happened in 60 seconds with 6 simple pieces. And think about what happened. First, you had to think about what in the world does a duck look like. Do I even know what a duck is? I don't even know what it looks like. And then you had to look at your materials. And then you had to start to put them together. Like, I got to start putting these pieces together. And then you're like, well, that's not going to work. I got to change. I don't like this. And then you're trying to go like, man, I can't. I'm not very good at this. I'm not creative. Like, this isn't a duck. You start to judge yourself. So now you got to start controlling your emotions. Some of you started to panic with the time going down. Some of you are starting to get angry. So what happens when emotions kick in? You start looking around, going, ooh, my duck's not as good as hers. You know, we start to do all these things. But the key here is that you did something. That's what we got to do. Getting people more engaged in actually doing something as opposed to sitting and doing nothing. And so as we go through this, it's no different than if you get like an email from an admin. One message could be interpreted 40 different ways. Like, did you see what he sent me? I thought it was great. Oh, he's called me out. Why did I get picked on that? Like, it's amazing how the interpretations can happen. And so what we want to talk about here is, I didn't give you a rubric. I didn't give you a criteria. I didn't give you points. I didn't give you anything but to make a duck. If we had time, we would have lined them all up. It's amazing how many different ducks would have been in here. It's really mind-blowing. And I have a link I'll share. I have like a photo op where I shared ducks that are built and made. And if you did share them to the hashtag stuff, you can see them. It's amazing all the different combinations. And so it's coming back to understanding that we think different, and it's okay. It's okay to be different. And do we allow kids to think different in our class? More importantly, do we allow our teachers to think differently in our school and district to tap into their creative flow and juices? And so if we were to go through and do this again, like, how did you work? What would you try different next time? How could we document the process? And how could you use something like this in the classroom? How could you take something very, very simple, whether you have Lego or popsicle sticks, cotton ball, I don't really care what you have, just hold up your teacher desk drawer. How could you throw it on the table with kids and give them a very quick challenge? This doesn't take hours and hours. It's 1 minute, quick. Build me a cell, quick. Build me a circuit, whatever, I don't know, quick, build me a sentence. And have them figure it out. It can be quick and easy. I think we have to have these monstrosity projects because that's the pressures we face. It doesn't have to be that way. And so the deep thought is that you know more than what you think you know. Like you guys went through so much thinking and learning in that minute, you're not even giving yourself enough credit. And so let's do another challenge. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go, it can be you, this section will be group 1. Okay, you guys can be group 1. We'll go about this half here, doesn't have to be perfect, be group 2. Like everyone from this camera over will be group 2, and then the rest of you will be group 3. Okay, group 1, 2, 3. And if you have a scratch piece of paper, you may need it. So here's what we're going to have you do. In this one, group 1, you're going to build as many ducks as you can. That should actually be 2 minutes, not 1 minute, I apologize. So 2 minutes, you're just building duck. You're going to build a duck, and then you're going to tear it down, and you're going to build another duck. You're going to tear it down, and you're going to build another duck. See how many different ducks you can create. Group 2, you are going to draw the duck, and then you're going to build it. And then you're going to draw another duck, and then you're going to build it. And you're going to go back and forth. Group 3, I got you all backwards, don't I? It'll work. Group 3, you're going to be doing this, where you're going to be drawing for 1 minute. I reversed my groups, it doesn't matter. You're going to be drawing as many ducks as you can for 1 minute. And then the last minute, I'll trigger you, you're going to start to build it and see how many you can actually build. So I went reverse in my groups. Okay? So, you're going to be building non-stop. No writing or drawing. Group 2, draw, build. Group 3, drawing for 1 minute and building 1 minute. Okay? Go. Keep track of how many ducks you actually build, full tally or in your head. Alright, you guys can start building. The drawer is going to switch.
So now we're going to build your drawings.
Now the 1 minute here. Keep grinding, keep grinding.
Okay, that's cute.
Yeah. So that's 30 seconds. Alright, now 15 seconds here. Those final builds. Alright, there we are. Okay. So, if you have time, we're not going to give time because we got a little bit of a late start. But if you want to enter how many you built, I just have a Google spreadsheet. You can add them, but it's not life or death at this point, so I want to get moving on. But what happened through these 3 groups? If we had more time to really process this, here are some things that I want you to kind of think about. Like, what does this tell us? And if we were to have some more time, we look that up and compare how many ducks people built. We just got to build the entire time versus those that had to draw and build, and those that had to draw for a minute and then build. And we look at those numbers here. And I'm not here to give you a definite answer. Because your classroom, your personality, your culture dictates a lot of this. And as you know, there's different times for everything. The things that are important for you to consider through this design process is, when do we plan too much? I've been in education long enough to know that, and I've done this myself, and maybe it's not the most professional thing to do, that if I have a new initiative, and every time we come back to school in August in Iowa, there'd be 5 new initiatives. And we had no idea where they came from because they weren't there in June. But I knew that if we put our feet down and really didn't do anything for 3 years, it would go away. It would be replaced by another initiative. All right? And so when did that we spend so much time planning that we never actually get to execution? We're working all this time trying to make this perfect lesson plan, this perfect assessment, as we're just doing it. You know, on the flip side, and this is where maybe I get more guilty, when do we rush to build without thinking? We just dive into something without actually thinking it through. And we get halfway through and go, oh Lord, this is not good. You know, and then is there value in the short sprints and feedback loops, the spot check? And so it's just good as you look at your practice and the things that you're doing in your classroom. Are you doing some of this too much? Or others not enough? Or is there a way you need to maybe embrace some of that and change? And so the current reality is this, is that you're being asked to do 20 hours of work in an 8-hour day. You're being asked to be an expert in 20 different fields when you only sign up to be an expert in 1 or 2. You're being expected to differentiate for, 180 kids every single day with 180 needs, and those needs become more and more diverse every single year. Like, you're starting to burn at both ends. Like, my wife is an amazing educator, not just because she's my wife, but I've never seen her so stressed in my 17 years of watching her teach. I've never watched her do more work at home than ever before. And I'm watching it take a toll on her. Like, so there's things that we've got to work through some of this. And some of it is just, how can we start to change our perception? As an educator in a classroom, you don't have a whole lot of power and the upper power that being that make those decisions. So it's not here I'm going to tell you, like, revolt the system, because that's not going to work. But how can we change the perception of things that we can do in our classroom? And so I read this quote, actually, when I was stuck at LAX yesterday at the airport, and my plane had a hydraulic issue, and so I didn't have a plane to get here. And I read this in a book, and this guy said, "A genius is one who has not been damaged by education." And I had a real problem with that. And so I was thinking about the perception. I said, well, how do we change that to where the genius is one that has been empowered by education? Like, how do we start to make this happen within our classrooms? And so, how do we stop making kids bend to teachers? And what if we start to bend to the needs of kids? Now, I'm not talking about meeting every single individual need, but listening to the ebb and flow of your school, of your class, and weaving those elements into your school day. And so, why do we look to ban the things that kids enjoy learning about and are using? So an example would be these, which were the bane of all teachers' existence last year. Every other Facebook post was about how much we suck. But what if we twist this? So in our makerspace, we changed it. And we brought kids in and we taught them CAD, and we taught them how to 3D print, and we taught them about weight distribution, and we taught them about weight bearing. And they started to make these. How do you paint them? How do you sand them? What did you do to make them this big or this small or whatever? And how do we start to infuse that? And what was really fascinating was I had kids entering the makerspace coming before and after school that are not the kids that you normally get excited about if they come into your room before and after school. And they were jacked up. And it was this awesome hodgepodge. And so it's like, how do we start to tap into those? George Curl says, what scares me is to think that we've taken the most human profession and knocked it down to letters and numbers. And how do we get away from this? Because I call it this. This is my riff on Moore's Law. I call it the coffee chug law. The observation that the number of pieces of data collected in a dense, overpacked school day doubles approximately every 1 year of service education. I watched my wife just type into spreadsheets over and over and over and over and over. And so it's not that we have to do better, we have to do different. I use this all the time. And I share this in almost every single presentation I do. Because when I hear people say, we've got to do better, like that pisses me off. Because that's implying that teachers are not doing it right. And I refuse to believe that there's any teacher that wakes up in the morning and goes, they're just going to do a crappy job today. It's not going to do it. Some people do the job better than others. But that's an insult. It's how do we start to do things differently with what we have. And I think that's a fundamental difference. It's taking the deck of cards that you have. You guys have this deck of cards, this toolbox, all these things that you've gathered, and how do you reshuffle and start to repurpose all the things that you know? You are experts. You are amazing at what you do, and you've got to start to believe in that and start to shift that notion a little bit and tap into it. Because think about this, the 6 2x4 Lego pieces has over 915 million different combinations. So how can we take this simple and make it unlimited? How do we take the things that you have sitting in your classroom and actually turn it around to do empowering work? And so as we were going through, if I had a chance to take pictures and go back and load it up, and if I do this activity sometimes in workshops, and I'll do that. Like, in a typical PD, people are laid back, got their hands on their head, they're checking things, they're not paying attention. But like when you guys are building with your Legos, you're going hands-on with whatever you're doing, you're leaning in. Like the whole body changes. There's a number of you were actually like leaned over, like building, like, we're gonna go look at your stuff, and you're talking, you're having a conversation, like because you're investing, you're making stuff, even if it's as stupid as a 6-piece Lego deck. So, go ahead and grab all pieces and just put them in a random arrangement. All right, so we're going to breeze through this one pretty quick. We're running a little short on time. This one's about symbols. And so think about the use of symbols in whatever it is that you teach. You have an abstract build right now. And don't go changing it on me now as we start to give these instructions. Just keep it what it is. All right? And if we were to take time and look at this, you might see an airplane, scorpion, teeter-totter. I don't know what you're going to see. You're going to see something. And it reminds me of an activity that we were doing when I run some maker workshops for teachers in schools. And we do this build thing, pretty similar to what you're going to do. You just have duck pieces. And I was testing this on my youngest daughter, and she was asked to build a dog. One activity was build a dog with 4 pieces. But you don't have any pieces that allow you to actually make a real dog. So my daughter built what you see in the middle. My wife came downstairs, and she came to the kitchen, and she's like, "Oh, Ava, I love your caterpillar." Ava instantly got pissed off, and she broke it, and she was angry. And the reason she was angry is because what she thought and built was a dog, her mother just told her was wrong. Not intentional. My wife had no idea what she was walking into. Now, how many times with best intentions do we interpret kids' thinking, building, and design? So it's really important that whatever work we do, we allow them to express it first, and then we leave to have that conversation after. Because all they want to do is make you happy. Even the ones that are the most volatile, that push your buttons every day, they need your attention. They need you to tell them that they're doing something right. So, we're just going to do 2 rounds of this for the sake of time, to just someone right next to you. And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. This is going to be on the prompt. So, just find someone next to you, figure out who's going to go first, who's going to go second. You're going to get 30 seconds on this timer, and you're going to get a prompt, and you're going to hold up your build, and you're going to explain why that build is the answer to that prompt. And you're going to have to talk all 30 seconds, so it can't be like just because it is and be done. Like, don't be a party pooper. All right? So, first person, we're just going to do 2 of these. All right? You have to explain why your object represents the students in your classroom. Go. My favorite teacher because, go. on time. So what's the experience? Like, how can we have this benefit your classroom? So here's what we've done. We've taken this idea, as opposed to asking about your favorite teacher or classroom, put your content in there. Give them a basket at their tables or their desk, however your room is organized, and just put random stuff in there. Like, it doesn't have to be Lego, it doesn't have to be fancy. We're talking like, just literally pull a desk drawer out of your desk and just start putting stuff in there. And you give them 5 minutes to build an object and don't tell them what. And then you run them through their group, 4 or 5 kids, and you give them 30 seconds to talk about, explain how this is a run-on system, explain how this is an algebraic equation. And if they can take that abstract, that symbol, and actually speak on it, you know they've got the content. And this takes no more than 10 minutes of your school day. Like, it's not all intrusive where you have to do weeks and weeks of planning. It's just, we buy dollar baskets from the dollar store, we throw stuff in there, build, here's your question, we move on. And it's really good, and it's quick, and it's effortless. And so think about the following here, that the journey is more important than the product. We've all seen it. That kid that has that beautiful end piece because mom and dad has the money to buy it, mom and dad have the money and the time to make it for the kid, but they haven't really learned anything. But the kid that maybe has a really sloppy end piece, where he went or she went from point A to point B, was huge. And where do we celebrate that? And how do we embrace that into our culture, in our class, rather than just always embrace things that look shiny and good? Because the work is not the art, the children are the art. So as they're talking about their projects and talking about their learning, is the focus on the product or is it on the kid? And it should be on the kid and where they're coming from. And so what's the experience you're trying to create? As you think about your classroom, go back to the fundamental reason why you got into this job. And what is that experience when kids enter that doorway? What is it that you want them to feel and be ready for? For me, it was the Coffee Truck Cafe. They knew it was going to be nerdy, it was going to be loud, there was going to be stupid music, and there was going to be coffee. And somewhere in there, we were actually going to learn to do the contents and standards and all the other things that we had to do. But who are you? And does your personality come through in the way that you operate? Okay, what are the goals? We can't get away from these things. These are the reality. But going back to that, this is what I have to do. How can I make this exciting for kids again? Who's going to lead the student experience? Are you in charge? Is your co-teacher in charge? Do you have student leaders? Is it a mixture? Does it ebb and flow based on the ideas? Sometimes I think we're so pressured, there's so much to do, we were always in charge, we're always running the show because a lot of late night planning because you're in meetings all day and you didn't get a chance to have a prep. Okay? Like I always say, teachers, yeah, they're trying to get prep time, but they're always stuck in parent meeting. Like, when's the last time a teacher had 5 minutes to fart and drink a Pepsi? They don't even have that time for school day anymore. And so, how do we build that? We have curriculum, but we also got to get into more open-ended projects to help them reach that. And how are they going to access the space? How do they know that they can get these tools? Are these things off limits? Like, what's that look like? What's the flow and the structure where there is freedom and constraints? And how do you get educators on board with this? And it's by leading and modeling the way. And then the assessment piece. You can't get away from that, but what's that look like? And when can you avoid that completely? And how can we rethink assessment? And if you can get through all that, that's when you can start looking at the tools. And that's when you can start to do really cool things. Like this here is conductive paint for our podcast. We went and explored the Quad Cities for all the haunted areas that are supposedly haunted in our area. Kids created podcasts, went on our local radio station, and we built a wall. And so there's all their posters, and they're all linked through conductive paint. And when you push this button, it would actually turn and play the podcast on the wall for visitors when they came in. Like, that stuff's pretty cool. And so this is what it looked like, and that's what I talked about. What's your space look like? Like these shelves here, anybody could walk in at any time and take whatever they needed from there. They did not have to ask. And we just had that there. The other things, like on the back wall, they had to ask. All right, the work tables where kids work, and we had the coffee pot all the way in the back, which we'll talk about in the next session with Teacher Tinker Time. But we had to create that kind of opportunity. Because as I bring it to a close, is this: is makerspaces are so powerful. Everybody's talking about them. Everybody's trying to bring them in. But does not anybody see the problem in this? Why are we trying to create a room in a school that doesn't feel like school? That is a patchwork system. That is not what it's about. It's better than nothing, And so I like to challenge you that the definition of a makerspace should be the definition of a classroom. And this should go together. And the minute we continue to subdivide everything in education, it's just a cop-out to doing the wrong things right as opposed to doing the right things wrong. Just trying to make it happen. And so I'm asking you to stand out here and not wait for instructions and just try something new and different. Like try to make your own crayon. Like we were messing around, we melted crayons in the microwave with Lego pieces and it didn't work, but it was kind of fun while we tried. Because the scale of education, that every time you teach something, you deprive a child of the pleasure and benefit of discovery. It's my favorite Catholic quote of all time. We're going to skip this for the sake of time, but you'll have access to these slides and you can copy all these ideas down. But what we're going to do is have you build something abstract and explain why it is what it is. But here's what I want to end with. What's your story going to be? When you leave this conference today, you have all these ideas. What is it that you're going to do to change or tweak or modify or enhance something in your classroom? What is that? Don't just come here and then walk away with nothing. And I know what you're thinking, like, well, sure would be nice if Lego sent me Lego duck pieces. Sure would be nice if I had that. But take what you have. So as I was going through, I hot glued eyes, and I made a duck with just random pieces. Like, the goal here is take what you have. And if you don't have tools, and you don't have hot glue guns, it can be low tech. Take a Sharpie and just draw on it. Like, just take whatever it is that you have. You don't have to wait for the perfect opportunity. It's like kind of like trying to figure out when to have a kid. There's never a good time. There's always that oh crap moment, and it's like, oh, I guess it was a good time. You know? So you can't send a dog to Eagle School, but we can build dogs to remember what it's like to play and be a kid again. And that's the spirit we have to bring back to our class. Okay, there's no manual. We have to keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Okay. All right? And so, as we go through here, I want you to make something different. I want you to make something innovative. And the best word ever by John Green, I want you to make something awesome. I thank you for your time. Enjoy your Lego Duck Kit.